Welcome to Franklin Templeton's Global Investment Perspective. I'm Judy Huang, and today is Wednesday, March 30th. Joining me from Fort Lauderdale is Brent Smith, Senior Vice President and Chief Investment Officer of Franklin Templeton Multi-Asset Strategies. Brent, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
As a global team with multiple product types, how do the FTMAS portfolio managers coordinate strategies?
It's not a tough answer, but it can be difficult at times, given that the products that we do manage, both in the U.S. and Europe and Canada, have very different investment universe. For example, in the U.S. here, all of our fund-to-fund products invest in Franklin Templeton registered mutual funds. In Canada, not only do we invest in Franklin Templeton registered products in the Canadian marketplace, but we also have a couple of third-party advisors to Franklin Templeton funds. As well, we can invest in up to 10% of the portfolios in CCAV funds, while our European product can invest in all of the CCAV range, but we can also invest up to 50% of the portfolios in third-party funds, as well as some alternatives such as managed futures. So each area that we manage those products has a much different investment universe. But apart from that, we do try to ensure a consistency of investment management process. We do have a global investment committee that meets on a weekly basis that discusses global macroeconomic trends that can have an impact on our portfolio. So we do have a consistency when it comes to for example, overweight or underweight one asset class versus another, or one region versus another. So there is a consistency in how we're amongst all of our portfolios. So if we are overweight U.S. equity in one portfolio, we're going to be overweight U.S. equities in all of our portfolios. How it's implemented is really dependent upon the country that the portfolios are registered in.
Can you share some of the main global economic trends that are affecting your team's decision-making process today?
Sure. There's obviously a number of different global economic trends that are not only impacting what we're doing today, but we think that can have an impact down the road over the next 6 months or so. Obviously, one of the big ones, what is the Fed doing? We know that the Fed continues to be very accommodative, and we think as long as it remains that way, that risk assets, especially equities, will continue to do well. One of the reasons we are slightly overweight equities in all of our portfolios. But on the other hand, we're cognizant of the fact that the longer that the Fed remains accommodative, there can be an inflationary impact down the road, which will not be that positive for risk assets as we start seeing a more tightening bias from the Fed. That's not anywhere near term, but it's something we've got to keep our eyes out on. Some of the issues over in Europe, I know that everyone recognizes that the ECB is very concerned about inflationary pressures, and one of its mandates is really to control inflation. We are seeing some very on the periphery, economic conditions are still rather poor in some of the periphery countries that I'm sure everyone is aware of, such as Greece, Ireland, Spain, etc. So any tightening bias will be very difficult, will prove to be difficult for some of those countries. So those are some of the things that we have to be aware of. Commodities, commodity prices continue to ramp up. Food and energy prices continue to ramp up. And that will definitely have an impact, not so much on the developed countries where food and energy prices tend to be a much smaller part of disposable income, but in some of the emerging areas of the world where energy and food tends to be a much bigger component of discretionary income, and it will definitely have an impact on consumption in those countries. So those are some of the things that we got to keep our eyes out on in managing our portfolios.
Great perspective, Brent. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks very much for having me.
And thank you for watching Franklin Templeton's Global Investment Perspectives.